So far as today's session is concerned, it is on the legal procedure 1, and the learning objectives for today are that number 1, to learn and discuss the term legal procedure, then to learn commonly used legal terms, to learn about the evidence and its types, then to learn and enlist different types of the medical documents, and finally to learn the differences between term dying declaration and dying deposition. Simply recalling from earlier session today by our respected Professor Farhat Hussain Mirza Sahab, the definition of the forensic medicine. Forensic medicine is the branch of the medicine which deals with the application of the medical knowledge and skills for the purpose of law or for the purpose of the furtherance of the justice. And this subject also deals with the biomedical ethics too. Now, having a look on that definition, if simply we change the application of the medical knowledge with the pediatrics, then it becomes pediatrics forensic medicine or forensic pediatrics. Similarly, if we change the term with the gynae, then it becomes forensic gynecology. And in case we apply the knowledge and skills of the psychiatry for the furtherance of the justice, then it becomes forensic psychiatry. Similarly, if we use the knowledge of the pathology and its skills for the purpose of law again or for the furtherance of the justice, it will be known as the forensic pathology. Similarly, there is a term medical jurisprudence, which is the branch of law. Now, forensic medicine was the branch of medicine, while the medical jurisprudence is the branch of law which is taught to the final year students of the undergraduate law degrees like LLB. So, branch of law, medical jurisprudence, which deals with the organization and regulation of the medical profession. So, we being doctors, our professional attitude, our professional practices are monitored by medical jurisprudence. Nowadays, we all know that because of the increasing awareness about the patient's rights, patients are bringing more and more grievances against the doctors, against the healthcare professionals, and against the hospitals or even the pharmaceuticals or the laboratories to the Healthcare Commission. That's why the government, every provincial government has established Provincial Healthcare Commission. In Sindh, we have Sindh Healthcare Commissions, and that Sindh Healthcare Commission will take our cognizance or monitor us or analyze our activities, acts or practices under the medical jurisprudence. Then comes the division of the forensic medicine. In forensic medicine, you will study law. In forensic medicine, you will study the ethics. In forensic medicine, you will also study the basic medical sciences or basic medical forensic like identification or the mechanism or the process or the signs of the death. Then you will also be studying clinical forensic medicine like examination of the injured, examination of the victim of the sexual assault, or the examination of the intoxicated patient. You will also learn how to do autopsy and the exhumation also. Although our subject forensic medicine is listed in basic medical sciences, but factually most part of the forensic medicine is a clinical one. Now, having a look on these things and keeping the look on the definition of the subject, our aim was to help the courts of the law in the furtherance of the justice. So when we examine, our doctors do the examinations of the injured victims of the sexual assault or the intoxicated patient and perform the autopsy and the exhumation, then after examination they make medico legal reports of these examinations. They make the autopsy report, they make the exhumation report, and now these reports are to be presented in the courts of the law, which is known as the to testify in the court of the law. For that purpose, doctors will appear in the court of the law as an expert witness to help the justice. So all these procedures do take place, then that expert witness appearance take place in the courts of the law. That's why it is essential that we should be aware, or we should have knowledge, or we should be well versed with the court procedures, and that is known as the legal procedure, which are defined as the procedures followed in the courts of the law during the case proceedings, so that when we appear in the court of the law as an expert witness, we may not face some awkward situations. Again, a bit repetition. That court where we have to appear, these are actually the places where people bring their grievances against each other to seek the remedies. And the person who presides that place, that is the court of the law, is known as the judge. And the final conclusion made in writing by the judge or the presiding judge at the end of the court proceedings is the judgment, or that is the sought out final outcome, for which we say the furtherance of the justice, or the victims will vindicate the justice, that is through the judgment of the court. Now, whenever there is a case, at least there are two parties. One party is the complainant, who brings an action in the court of the law against some opponent, and the other person is the defendant, against whom the complaint has been lodged in the court. So the first complainant in a legal term is also known as the plaintiff, while the second person who defends himself against the allegation is also known as the defendant. Then there is an advocate on either side. The advocate of the plaintiff is known as the prosecution advocate or prosecutor, and typically in criminal cases the victims are provided this prosecutor by the state, and it is free of cost, while the defendant has to involve or hire an advocate, and that will be known as the defense counsel. So plaintiff is the one who is a complainant, defendant is the one who has to defend himself, counsel or the advocates are either prosecutors, which are provided to the plaintiff free of cost by the state in criminal cases, and the defense counsel, which the defendant has to hire. Then are the terms summon, warrant, and the bail. Summon is written, signed, and stamped direction of the court to the witness or to an accused to attend the court on a specified time, date, and the place. Means it is a call letter from the court that a witness or an accused person has to attend or appear in the court of the law on a specified time, date, and the place. Doctors are given summon. Doctors, as an expert witness, are given the call letters that for that particular report for the case which that doctor has attended and made a medico legal report of that or a medical certificate of that examination, that doctor is called by this official letter, which is known as the summon. Another term is the warrant, which means written, signed, and stamped authority to arrest a person and produce him before the court. This is different from the summon. Summon was simply a call letter. Warrant is not the call letter, but it is a letter or authority to the police. That police has to arrest that person and produce him before the court of the law on a specified time, date, and place. Generally, when doctors are called to be an expert witness in the case which they have made, and if the doctor fails to appear before the court on that call letter or the summon, courts are usually their attitude is a bit relaxed towards the doctors, so usually they issue another summon for the next date. But even on the next date, if the doctor fails to appear, then sometimes courts may issue warrant against the doctor and ask the area police to arrest the doctor and bring the doctor or produce the doctor before the court on a specific time, place, and the date. We doctors must understand this situation, and we always strongly suggest that orders by the court in the form of the summons must never be avoided. Doctors must appear before the court of the law. Otherwise, warrant are not good, and the situation of the doctor becomes a real awkward situation. Then there is a term bail, which means a bond entered into to ensure appearance of the accused person at the time and place of the trial. Now, warrants can be bailable, where doctor can get the bail from the court, and the warrants can be non-bailable also, where the bail option is not available to the doctor or to the witness. Here we are saying again doctor, because we are concerned with you, with the doctors, with the medical and the healthcare community. So summon, warrant, bail. Now some explanation of the summon. Those doctors who are doing medical legal works, they are heavily loaded with their medical legal work. So there are the chances that sometimes they get more than one call letter or more than one summons from different courts, because they have done lot of cases, they have done lot of issued lot of medical documents. The chances are there. Then what to do? The guideline is that if doctor gets two summons for the same time and date, then if these two courts are of same status, then doctor should attend the court from which he has received the summon first. So first come, first serve basis, he has to attend the court, the letter of which the doctor has received first, but under intimation to the other court that I am not in a position to appear in both the courts on same day and the time, so the next date may kindly be fixed. This is one scenario. Another scenario can be that courts are of same status, but one court is a criminal court and the other court is a civil court. Then the priority goes to the criminal court. The doctor has to appear in a criminal court first, but under intimation to the civil court that today or on that day he will not be able to appear before the court because of the reason that he has been called by the criminal court also on the same time and date, so a new date may kindly be fixed. Another scenario may be that two summons, more than one summon from the different status courts. So the doctor has to appear first in the higher court, then in the lower court. So appearing in a higher court with intimation to the lower court that the next date may kindly be fixed, because on that specific date he has to appear in the higher courts. Nowadays, there are anti-terrorist codes known as the ATCs. Top priority is to the ATCs. So, if a person gets the summon from the ATC also, then he has to appear in the ATC or anti-terrorist code first, under the intimation to the other court that next date may kindly be fixed so that he can appear in the next date also. Then there is a term testimony. Testimony means oral or written evidence given by a competent witness under oath in the court of the law. So when doctor appears in the court of the law, he will be given oath. So whatever orally or with the documentary evidence he presents in the court of the law under oath, that is known as the testimony. And the doctor will be said that he has testified in the court of the law. So testimony, oral or written evidence given by a witness under the oath in the court of law. Then another term, deposition. It means out of court testimony by the witness under oath. Example is dying deposition. Means the testimony is not submitted or presented in the court of law, but out of court that has been testified by the witness under the oath. And the example is the dying deposition, which we will be discussing in coming slides. Then there is another term, exhibit. A document or object, including photograph, introduced as evidence during a trial in the court of law. So if the doctor, he first reads and then submits a medical legal report, and then that submission of that medical legal report in the court of the law will be known as the exhibit. That document which is submitted is the exhibit. Words are uttered and the things are exhibited. So whatever the doctor has orally narrated or stated in the court of the law, that is the testimony. And whatever documents are other things like photograph or anything else, any object, anything which is also brought for examination and submission in the court, that is known as the exhibit. Now another term, offense, with different spellings. In first offense it is the C, and in the second offense it is the S. These are same. It's only the first one is the British English and the second one is an American English. And the word crime is also sort of synonym, used alternatively, having almost similar definition. Say the definition of the offense is any breach or violation of the law, while the definition of the crime is anything which is against the law. So almost similar definitions. And in the earlier session with the Professor Farhat Mirza Sahab, you also studied the crime components. Crime has two components, mens rea actus reus, just a repetition. Mens rea, a criminal intention, a criminal design, a criminal planning or evil planning. When person actually acts upon this, that evil intention, that is the actus reus. So two components. For crime it is essential that both components should be present. If any component is missing, then that thing will not be classified as the crime. Now the offense can be of two types. Offense can be cognizable offense. Offense can be non-cognizable offense. Cognizable offense is one where police can arrest the person or accused without a warrant or order by the court. Cognizable offences are the serious offences where police can arrest the accused person without orders from the court or without warrant, while the non-cognizable offences are those offences in which police cannot arrest the accused person without court warrants or the court orders. So, the cognizable offences are the serious and the heinous crimes. Non-cognizable offences are relatively minor offences. Cognizable offences include the offences of the murder, offense of the kidnapping, and such serious offense of the sexual assault, rape, sodomy. These are the cognizable offense where police can arrest the accused person without court orders or without the warrants by the court. Non-cognizable are the offences where police cannot arrest without court orders or the court warrants. So offences can again be bailable, where bail can be taken, and non-bailable, where bail may not be taken. So bailable offense, non-bailable offense, cognizable offense, non-cognizable offense. Then is the term evidence. Evidence means a fact or an information in an issue in a case which a witness is capable of perceiving through any of his own senses, that is vision, hearing, smell, taste or touch. I repeat, it's a fact or an information in an issue in a case which a witness is capable of perceiving through any of his own senses. Testimony we have already studied, a fact or information after its presentation in the court of the law under the oath. Then is the term perjury, which means a willful utterance of the falsehood under the oath in the court of law. Willful utterance of falsehood under the oath or the fake presentation or the wrong presentation willfully under the oath in the court of the law, and this perjury is crime. When anything willfully uttered or presented which is a false thing under the oath in the court of the law, it will be termed as the perjury. Then is the witness. Witness is a person who perceives the fact through any of his own senses and subsequently testifies in the court of the law. So, witness is a person, while the evidence was a fact or an information. That fact or information that is perceived by a person which is known as the witness, and this witness subsequently narrates or states that evidence in the court of the law under the oath, and it is known as the testimony, or the person is said to have testified. So the doctor, when appears in the court of the law, when called by the court for the recording of the evidence, then he has to narrate whatever he has examined, and then he has to submit whatever he has written or made a report of that. So he has to testify, then he has to also exhibit that medical or the documentary evidence is also to be presented in the court of the law. Now coming to the evidence, evidence can be of four types. Evidence can be direct evidence, evidence can be circumstantial evidence can be opinion of an expert, or evidence can be a hearsay evidence. We will discuss one by one. Say, for example, it's starting with the direct evidence. Direct evidence is one which is directly perceived by the witness with any of his own senses. Say, for example, if the person reaches the road where he sees that he witnesses himself or he observes himself that a speeding car has hit a motorcyclist. This is the direct evidence he has observed with his own eyes that a speedy vehicle has hit a motorcyclist. This is one scenario, and this will be termed as the direct evidence. Next is the circumstantial evidence. Say the same person who reaches on the main road and what he sees that there is a rush around, there are the broken glass pieces on the road, there are tire marks on the road also, and there is some person at some distance who is fallen on the ground and crying for the help. From that all information which he perceived, he can say that there has been a road traffic accident. Although he has not observed or witnessed himself that event of hitting the car with the motorcycle, but from the available circumstances, tire marks, say the rush, person crying for the help, broken glass pieces around, all these suggest that there has been a road traffic accident, and this will be tagged as the circumstantial evidence. Next is the opinion of the expert. Doctor is considered as a medical expert. The chemical examiner is also considered as an expert. The ballistic expert in the police department who is responsible for examining and certifying the weapons, the bullets, the shots, that person is also considered as an expert witness or an expert person. So when these experts give their opinion, that opinion is also taken as the opinion of an expert and as an evidence. The last one is hearsay, means heard from someone, or in Urdu, suni sunai baat. Here the example can be that the person has neither directly witnessed the event, nor the person has witnessed himself any circumstantial things, changes or things, nor it is an opinion of an expert, but the person has, for example, Mr. A has heard from Mr. B that Mr. C says the D was hit by F. Such hearsay is not admissible in the courts of the law as an evidence, except one situation known as the dying declaration. That dying declaration we will be discussing in the coming slides. So, direct evidence, circumstantial evidence, opinion of an expert, and hearsay. And hearsay is not admissible, not valid in the court of the law, only except one situation, that is known as the dying declaration. Now the evidence can be oral, evidence can be documentary. As we have already discussed, the oral evidence is known as the testimony, while the documentary evidence is known as the exhibit. Now that exhibit or the documentary evidence can be primary documents or the secondary documents. All the original papers, original documents are termed as the primary document, while the certified or the photocopies are known as the secondary documents. So oral and the documentary evidence. Another case, another term, summon case. This is different from the summon we already have studied. That was the call later by the court to appear in the court on specified time, date, and the place. While this is the case, summon case, it is a criminal case, is classified as summon case when the punishment for the crime cannot be more than 2 years of jail imprisonment. Summon case is a criminal case which is classified as a summon case when the punishment for the crime cannot be more than 2 years of the jail imprisonment. Means any criminal case where the punishment can be less than 2 years of the jail imprisonment. Similarly, warrant case. A criminal case is classified as a warrant case if the offense is punishable with death or imprisonment for a period of more than 2 years. Criminal case is classified as a warrant case if the offense is punishable with death or imprisonment for a period of more than 2 years. So simply the summon case is one which is a criminal case where punishment cannot be more than 2 years, while the warrant case is one where the punishment is more than 2 years, ranging from 2 years to the death sentence even. So this is the basic difference between the warrant case and the summon case. Summon case imprisonment less than 2 years, warrant case imprisonment more than 2 years. Oath, we have taken the name of the oath again and again, and what it is. It is mandatory for a witness to take oath before testifying. Witness will take oath on his or her religious book. In case of an atheist witness, he will take oath on the solemn affirmation. So oath is mandatory. There is no excuse for the oath. Witnesses will be given oath on their religious book. Atheist means with no religion will be given oath on the solemn affirmation. And what is the language or body of the oath? It is, whatever I will state truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Whatever I will state truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. This is the body of the oath. Every witness, it is for every witness, it is mandatory to take oath before testifying in the court of the law. Medical documents. During professional life, every doctor writes so many medical documents. Collectively, these are known as the medical documents. Their examples are the prescription, medical certificates, birth and death certificates, medico-legal certificates, autopsy report, labs report, admission, discharge, and these reports. The commonest medical document is the prescription. Prescription is the commonest medical document which a doctor starts writing right from their internship period. Throughout their career, they do write so many prescriptions, so it is the commonest medical document. Then comes the medical certificates. Certificates issued for the illness, certificates issued for the fitness, and the certificate issues for the disability of the differently abled person. Birth certificates and the death certificates are also common medical document. Then are the medico-legal certificates. When doctor examines the medico-legal cases, say injured from accident, injured from physical assault, injured from self-harming or suicidal activity, are the victims of the sexual assault, victims of the rape, victims of the sodomy, victims of child abuse, victims of the poisoning. So all these cases where certification is required for the legal purpose, age certificate, for example, uh, decision certificates on the person being a major or minor, age certificate for different medical legal purposes. So these are the again certificates, common certificates. Then are the autopsy. Doctor is also required to undertake the autopsy, and at times sometimes the digging out of the dead body from the graves and then performing the autopsy on those bodies uh, in the graveyard mostly, and sometimes the bodies may be taken to the mortuaries also for performing the autopsy there. So these after the examination of doing all these things, autopsy and the exhumation, doctor has to fill out the pro forma or the written report. So that is also a common report. Then again, very common medical documents are the laboratory reports, radiology reports, CTs including CT scan and MRI and the PET scan and angiography reports and so on. Then admitted patients admission report, continuation sheets in the files of the patient in the hospital while they are admitted, discharge summaries, uh, clinical notes, clinical summaries, operative summaries. Whenever the person is operated, surgeon is supposed to write down operative note at the end of the surgery, that what was the case and what was the indication and what was the preoperative condition, what was the were the fitnesses taken from the other departments, and what surgery was performed, under what conditions, under what precautions, and what happened during the surgery. Is there any mishap or wrong thing or eventful thing happened? So all these are to be mentioned in that operative report. So that is also very important medical document. So these are the important and the common medical documents. Although there may be so many others which are not mentioned here. Then are the two documents, dying declaration and the dying deposition, which in earlier slides we said we will be discussing in the coming slides. Dying declaration is the statement of a dying person. Similarly, the dying deposition is also the statement of a dying person. So both are the statements of the dying person, but the circumstances are different. Taking the dying declaration first, it's a statement of a dying person in front of any respectable citizen about the circumstances of his condition or his imminent death, what happened with him. So about that, if he makes any statement, and that statement is made, can be made in front of any respectable citizen. As in most of the cases, the person is hospitalized in the hospital, so the most reasonable person around will be the treating doctor or attending doctor. So when that statement is taken by the attending doctor, that needs to be taken in the patient's or dying person's verbatim. Whatever he says about the event, that is written or mentioned, and nothing added or deleted by the doctor. That is known as the dying declaration. Now this dying declaration is a sort of hearsay evidence, because the doctor says whatever the patient has informed him, he has written his verbatim. He has not seen himself. He is not witness to the event. So it is a sort of hearsay evidence. And what we studied, what we just learned in earlier slides, that hearsay evidence is not admissible, not valid in the court of the law, except dying declaration. So, Federal Shariat Court in one case has also asked the health department of all the provinces that doctors must be conveyed that this is also a duty of a doctor, that if dying person wants to say something about the circumstances, doctor must take the statement, must record that dying declaration, so that a chance of the justice to that victim may not be lost. Then is the dying deposition. As I said, that is also a statement of a dying person, but in front of the judge. Now, what happens? Take this, we can say, take a scenario that if there is a dying person and he wishes to make some statement, asked his attending physician that he wants to attend, and a doctor analyzes in the assessment that there is some sufficient time to call the court, to call the judge, that the person is dying and he wants to make a statement and he is not in a position to come to the court, so the court will come to the hospital. That area magistrate or the area judge will come to the hospital, to the patient's bedside, and also the judge or the court will call the opposite party, the accused party, or his advocate, and then the judge will administer the oath to the dying person, or the person who is wishing to give some statement about his circumstances of that condition. So that oath will be administered, then his statement will be recorded and in front of the opposite party or the advocate, and then the opposite party will also be provided opportunity to cross-examine that dying person. That person who is making this dying deposition, he will be provided opportunity that he can be cross-examined. Now this, and at the end there will be a judge will also take the signature of the dying person. Now this deposition is known as the dying deposition. If you recall from the previous slides, that deposition means outside court testimony. So it is like a testimony because it was under oath. Opportunity of the cross examination was provided to the opposite party. It was well signed and the judge was present. So this has a similar value of a testimony but outside court. That's why it is known as the dying deposition. So dying declaration, dying deposition. In this slide, there is a mention of the differences between the two, dying declaration and dying deposition. In dying declaration, oath is not required, while in dying deposition, the oath is essential. In dying declaration, physician can record the dying declaration, while in dying deposition, judge can record. In dying declaration, presence of the accused is not required, but in dying deposition, the presence of the accused is essential. The dying declaration can be made in criminal cases only, while the dying deposition can be made in any case. It's not necessary that the case is criminal in nature. In dying declaration, no cross-examination. In dying deposition, cross-examination is essential. In dying declaration, again signature not required, but in dying deposition, signature is must, is essential. Dying declaration becomes not valid if the person survives. Just recall, this is the statement by a dying person, and in case person survives, then this dying declaration becomes invalid. While in case of dying deposition, that dying person, if he survives, his dying deposition will remain valid. It will remain a legal document because it was taken by the judge. Opposite party was provided an opportunity of the cross examination, signature was there, so its validity remains there. This documents remain a legal document even if the person survives. So these were the major differences between the dying declaration and the dying deposition. This was all for today's session, the topics assigned to me.